Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is Corey at Operation Overhaul, and today I'm going to be doing an axle seal on a Lexus RX330. So if you would, stay with me and we'll show you how to do that. Alright, so we're under the car right now, and as you can see right here, it's leaking diff fluid out of the axle seal right here, and it's running down on the bottom. He said it just started a couple days ago, so we're going to pull the axle out right here first. I can make sure I can break it loose. And as you can see, this is a pretty rusty car. It's from Canada actually, even though I am in the south. And but we're going to see if we can knock this out for him. And it says we got to take all the link bars off. There's 3 of those, and then we're supposed to actually even drop the exhaust so we can clear it, but I think we can clear it without dropping that. And then I think we should be good to go once I take the axle nut off. But stick with me and we'll see what we can do. And first thing I'm going to do is drain the fluid. I already have the car jacked up. Have blocks to keep it from rolling. It's on jack stands, and the tires off on the passenger rear, because this is the passenger rear side right here. And we're going to see what we can do for them. Alright, there's a couple different ways we can get this axle out. You can try to get a brass drift and a hammer and hit it and see if it'll break it loose right there. But I find the most, well, I'll say appropriate way, I guess you could say, for doing it is to use a pry bar and get underneath here. Oh, you can see the axle move, the seal move actually, which isn't a good sign. We might have to get the repair sleeve kit. And I didn't order that because he just said that somebody told him it needed an axle seal and that was it. Guess they didn't inspect it good enough. Well, let's just see if we can get this axle out real quick, and then we'll go from there. I do have a drain pan, so there may be some stuff come out, but it's been leaking for a little over a week, he said, so I doubt it's got enough in there to come out because it only holds a quart of fluid. There we go. Alright, we got that broke loose. Looks like a little bit's going to come out on us, but we should be good. This drain plug is right here. I don't know if you can see that, but this drain plug, we're going to go ahead and take it out and let it drain. It is pretty rusted, so hopefully we can get it out. And it uses a 10mm Allen. Ooh. She was tight, but we got her. Fluid don't look bad except for what come out at the beginning. It's got some metal on it, but it's not horrible. I wish it looked a little better, but she should be alright. And this does use GL5. As you can see, not much come out. Like I said, it only holds a cord in there. And the fill plug is actually up in here, which is going to be fun to get to, and I bet it's rounded out. Alright, now we got a better view of what the assembly looks like for the link bars and all that. You gotta take, it says you gotta take this one, and that one off. These 2 right here are going to be 19mm nuts and bolts, and this is 17 on both sides. Then after remove those, or even loosen them, going to be an axle nut. I haven't looked to see what size that is yet, but when we get to that, I'll let you know. But so I'm going to go ahead and take these off. The back one, I don't know if I can get my impact in there. I may have to use my ratchet If not, I'll go get my air impact. But this one I can reach with my electric impact. And I should be able to reach that one too. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to it. While that's soaking, I'm going to actually try to get this other side off while that one's soaking. Well, that worked. I had to jack it up just a little bit to actually get a socket on there, just because this back link bar was in the way. I'm supposed to take it off first, but you know, it was pretty hard to get that one off, and we had to let it sit. Now we're going to let her down slow. Well, not what I wanted to happen. Nope, not at all. The axle did come out. I just got to figure out how to get this bolt out now. May have to torch the head off and try to get it out and go get a new one. But we'll do that in a minute. Let's get back to the axle seal and see how good we can get to it without taking anything else off. Alright, as you can see, we got the axle out. The axle nut is a 30mm 12-point socket, and it wasn't on there really all that tight, and it come off fairly easy. I didn't take the lower link off. You can move it enough without it, so if you have a rusty card like I did, don't try to take that lower bolt off, as it may snap the head of it. You know, just try to take as little stuff off as possible when it's this rusty. As you can see, the axle seal is pretty bad. It did have this ring around the axle. It's kind of like a protector shield that's in front of the seal itself. That's what the protector does. But I got it off, and I'm going to try to pull it out with a seal puller. Like I said, I'm going to try to use one of these. More than likely, I'm going to have to use a screwdriver and a hammer and hammer it out. But here is the new one. I got it from O'Reilly. They're not a sponsor or anything, but that's who I got it from. They were the only ones who actually had it in stock located near me. But we're going to give this oil seal driver or puller a try, see what happens. It's probably going to end up tearing the metal part of it, but maybe that'll give us a little bit more to kind of hammer on and see if we can get it out. moved a little bit. Alright, here's the seal. It's out right there. As you can see, it was pretty bad. It was rusted, and that's why it was leaking. Here's a new one compared to it, and the back of it's still kind of intact, so we're going to just make sure that it is the same size. It's not too small. As you can see, it's pretty much the same thing. It's even got the lip right here and the lip right there. And you can actually see some numbers on it. Okay. Can't really read them. Oh, there we go. Yeah. It's probably a different brand seal, so the numbers aren't going to match. But like I said, here's the new one. We're going to drive it in using a seal drive tool. But first, I'm going to clean out the hole because it does have some rust in it, and I'm going to put a little bit of silicone around the edge of this just to make sure that seals up, and I'm going to clean the bore out with brake cleaner and a rag. And before I install it, I'll show you how I'm going to install it. So as you see, put some silicone around the edge. I didn't put a lot, just a little small film just to ensure that it doesn't leak. And I just use Permatex is all I use. I'm going to use this Lyle seal driving tool right here, and there's the part number right there. And on service data it says to get something that fits inside of the seal. Don't go on the edge and crush that down, because if you do, it can actually flatten it out, and it can cause it to tear right around through there is what service data says. So what I'm going to do is use this, and it fits, like you can tell, right inside. And then if I need to, I can use like a brass drift or punch and go around the edge right here and tap it in until it seats in. But I'm going to show you that here in just a second. Alright, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this because my hand's going to be in the way a little bit, but I got the seal just kind of in there just a little bit just to hold, and I'm going to use my hammer and the drive tool, and I'm just going to hammer until you see it go in all the way, or you can hear the change too whenever it seats down. Looks to be seated in all the way now. Alright, now I'm going to put the drain plug back in. And the drain plug is right here. I mean, the fill plug is right there, but it is rounded off on the inside. And I know it calls for a quart of fluid, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and put a quart of fluid in through here. That way I don't have to drill this out and try to get it out or air hammer it out at the moment, because more or less this differential, he's not going to keep the car much longer, as he says that it does have a lot of rust on it, and he said he don't know if he wants to keep it much longer before he gets a new one. Alright, since the drain plug or fill plug is actually rounded out on the inside, and I don't want to have to repair that at this moment, what I'm going to do is just fill the differential back up through the axle seal or the axle port. That way we can get fluid back in it. And service data said it requires 1 quart, so what I'm going to do is just fill it up through that and put a quart in there, maybe just a hair more, just to ensure that there's enough. And that way next time it comes in, because he says he's going to bring it back to do a few other things to the differential, because he wants to do the other seal eventually, but he don't have the money at the time. So whenever we get ready to do it at that time, I'll repair the fuel plug. But right now, let's go ahead and fill it up through the axle port, and we'll get her finished up for the guy. And this does call for GL5, this 80W90. Now that has fluid in it, we're going to install the axle back into it, and then we'll clean her off. And like I said before, you need to put this seal guard back on the axle before we install it. Rub some of this oil around on the seal just to make sure that it's lubricated before we put the axle back in. Now the axle's back in. As you can see, this is the axle nut. Alright, so put these links back on. I haven't tightened them up yet. And as you can see in here, that is where the bushing that had the broken bolt was. I just used a drill bit and walked the bushing out with a drill bit. I don't know if you've ever seen that. If you just drill it in and then keep it at like a steady speed, and you drill around in a circle and pull back a little bit, it will actually walk that bushing out. And I have the bushing over here. As you can see, it's rusted in there pretty good. I did cut the threads off of one side, and that way it allowed me to get the arm, the link arm, out from around the bushing and the bolt. And then that way I just, like I said, I used a drill, drilled into it and walked around in a circle and pulled it this way, and it pulled it right out in a matter of seconds. But I'm going to hook up everything else, and the bushing won't be in until tomorrow, and I'll show you exactly how I do that whenever it comes in. But for right now, we're going to install everything that we can and get her ready to where all we gotta do is just put that lower bushing in and she'll be finished. Alright, it's a little windy today, so I'm sorry about that. This is going to be the continuation of the differential axle seal install. I did get the bushing in, it's right here, and it came with the press-in tool, but on the vehicle it's kind of hard to use due to the dust shield. It goes behind there, and then you use this to drive it in like that, and then this goes behind it and it just pushes it in, and it got it in. But we don't have a lot of room, so what I'm going to do is actually use a big C-clamp, or a Bessie clamp as some people call them, and I'm going to lube up the inside of that bushing area right here. I did clean it out a little bit with some Scotch-Brite right here, and I'm going to lube it up, put a little bit of like wheel bearing grease in there just so it'll slide in easier. I'm going to use this Bessie clamp right here. And get it started. You can see it just pushing it right in. If I can get it to go on straight. So I'm just using this just to pull the bushing lip out. Alright, I'm going to torque the axle nut down now, and it torques to 217 foot-pounds. So I just started it on with the impact and just ran it down till it quit pulling in. As you can see, it was spinning like that. So I'm going to put a pry bar in between the lugs right here, and I'm going to use that to jam against the ground and tighten it up. To keep from damaging the threads, I like to thread on the lug nuts. As you can see, it went to 219.2, and that's pretty close to where it needs to be. Now that that is done, we can throw the tire back on and we'll be done. One little tip I like to do is I get one and thread it all the way on by hand just to hold it in place, and I start the rest. You don't have to run them down all the way, but just enough to start at a few threads so you're not trying to run it down and start it with the impact. And then once you have those on, the service data says to torque them to 130 foot-pounds is what I read. And after you do that, you can let it down and take it for a test drive and test her out, and that should be it.